money is merely a byproduct. So if it becomes our main objective, I want more money, well, then we have to ask, well, what is money? It's a representation of value. Well, how would you get more money to actually deliver more value? So the question is, what activities are most consistent with who you are to deliver the most value to the world? Because it doesn't take money to make money. It takes value creation to make money. Money can be complicated. Let a nerd help you. We're here to demystify the complex nature of money by getting you answers from financial nerds and whiz kids. Welcome to Ask the Money Nerds, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we answer your most pressing money questions. What is money? Why is it so confusing or elusive for so many people? And what myths do people hold on to? And they hold back from living a great life and winning this game of money. I mean, is it about scrimping and saving? Or is it about risking and investing? Or maybe neither. So what's the best way? It's really about removing certain blocks so you can gain peace of mind, financial clarity, and break through your limitations around money being complex, evil, or, for that matter, just about luck. A lot of people kind of feel that way, right? So, yeah. But this is kind of your deal here today. I mean, I've got things to cover, but I know this is your deal that you want to talk about.
Yeah, I was thinking since we're in the start of a new year, people are thinking about, I think one thing that I love about the new year, I'm not big into making resolutions, but I love the collective energy around people considering what's possible for their lives. Like, how can we make, the world a better place? How can I improve as an individual? How can I invest in my family? And just thinking on this like growth trajectory. And I think that's kind of an exciting time. So my thought is we could talk about ways to win with money, or to be, and another way to put it is, how can we be in a better relationship or right relationship with money? And so I came up with my top 3 things that I think would be good to spend time considering to help us get in right relationships. So
yeah, well,
that's what I was thinking of today.
Let's start with your top 3, and then I'll chime in with some ideas I have around this. Because a lot of people think about money as like spreadsheets and numbers.
Yes.
But I think of money as like a concept. And that can simplify things when we look at it as a concept.
Yeah. When I was on the drive-in this morning, it's a good hour plus.
With some snow.
I always have some time to think. I was thinking about what is a word that describes money for me. I think before I used the word tool, it's a tool to help me build the life that I love. But I think the better word for me these days is money is my teammate. My teammate for creating the life that I want to live, to invest in the world that I believe that future generation should be a part of. And so I want more teammates.
I like that, because your income is someone else's expense, and your expenses are someone else's income.
Yeah.
Right? Which means you get to utilize their skills. Hopefully it's really efficient, because they can do something that maybe you're not as versed in, or that you don't want to do, but they somehow enjoy it, hopefully, ideally, or they have expertise in that. And so that gives you time to focus on what you want to bring to the world. So I think that's an important understanding around money, income and expense.
Yes.
Because most people just think, got to get rid of expenses. Expenses are bad, but expenses are the only way we utilize our money.
Right.
So I don't see them as bad. And I think there's different types of expenses. There's productive ones and there's destructive ones, right?
Most definitely.
Like if we're just paying for something that we never utilize, that's probably destructive. If we borrow and don't have the money and we consume and we don't have anything to show for it, that's pretty destructive. But if we invest in ourselves, or we put money in and more than that amount of money comes out, that's investments, right?
Yeah, a good example of this, especially around this time of year when we're starting a new year, is so many people want to get their health back on track, right? So gym memberships, skyrocket around this time. That would be a productive expense if you're utilizing it. You go to the gym, you're developing new rhythms around your health, but if you're paying for it and not going, then that would likely be a destructive expense, because it's not helping you meet the goal that you have for your life. So
right. So teammate, I like that. Good teammate. Perspective.
That's my word. And I was also thinking, you've said this in other videos and in your teachings and things like that, but even some of the language we use around money, like I just spent $50. Well, it's more like you said earlier, when you think of spent, it's like gone, right? It's more of an exchange. I just traded my money for something, or I was trying to think about other words on that, but I'm not a big fan of like, I spent my money, even though it's like a simple word and we all use it, but it just kind of means that it's done. And I don't believe that money's done once it's spent, because
right. It gets circulated.
It gets circulated. And
right.
So I've just been pondering that a little more. So my first one on my top 3 is get acquainted with the roots of your relationship with money. I believe this in all areas of my life, and especially around money. Like, we have to know our story and how it was developed around our beliefs here. And just thinking about, I have a few questions. So just thinking about, like, what thoughts do you have about money? Like, what's just ruminating in your mind? Do you think that there's not enough? Do you think the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? Money doesn't come to me. I work hard, but just think of the tapes that are going around in your mind. And it could be in the middle of a work day. It could be on a drive, but start paying attention to how you engage in your mind with money. But also, how do you talk about money? Mm-hmm. I think that's an important thing to consider. And especially looking at what experiences did you have growing up around money? How did you hear your parents talking about money? How did you see your parents interact with money? And I could give some specific examples, but I think for me, growing up in just kind of a middle class working family, my parents worked super hard, kind of blue collar family, and we always had what we needed, but there was still this underlying theme of stress around money. Like, there's not enough of it, and we work really hard, but we still don't have what we need or we want. And so in my journey of becoming just more in tune with my thoughts around money, I've had to look at those things and say, what was fed to me and what did I just naturally pick up on as a child, as a teenager, that is no longer serving me, and it's not going to get me to where I want to be with money, and it's not serving me right now with money. And so thinking through those 3 things: how do I think about money? How do I talk about money? How do my friends around me talk about money? I think is also important. And then identifying and moving past the experiences that you had in your younger years.
Yeah, I think that there's a notion that I can't afford it is a statement that people can say, and it's like, hey, if I say that, don't push me, and I won't push you.
Yeah.
So it's a social agreement. I can't afford it. I like just the simplicity of saying, what would it take to afford that?
Yeah. How can I afford it?
How could I afford that? How can I afford that? What value would I have to create? I see money as a byproduct of value.
Yeah.
I see value creation about serving others and solving problems. And I see vision being the main catalyst to value creation, what you're doing and why you're doing it, and the container in which you operate. Some people operate in the time for money container. Other people operate in the scrimping, saving, sacrificing, deferring, and delaying container, right? So it's all reduction based.
Yeah.
Other people live in the I'll just work harder container, right? Other people are like, I just need to get luckier and do more investment deals container. So we have different containers that people operate in based upon their beliefs. And it feels like each container judges the other one, right? You've got misers that are all about what they could do to eliminate expenses and costs and just keep as much money as possible.
Yeah.
You've got fiscally conservative people that are all about funding retirement plans and focus heavily on the intelligence they have around money. But typically, they're going to be mindful about how they save it, but then they're going to invest it in ways that sometimes are kind of reckless in mutual funds. You got strivers, which I've been a striver more than anything. It's like, I'll just work harder. I can just make more by working harder. But then they run themselves ragged and get exhausted. And then you got these high rollers that are always addicted to the next deal. They're always talking about the next big thing. They're trying to get rich quick, and they're trying to cut corners, and they're trying to make it big. It's almost like a lottery winner syndrome, but within business and startups.
Yeah.
So understanding that, like, money is merely a byproduct. So if it becomes our main objective, I want more money, well, then we have to ask, well, what is money? It's a representation of value. Well, how would you get more money to actually deliver more value? Now, some people are like, well, I can inherit money, I guess, if you're part of the Lucky Sperm Club. Other people might be like, I'll marry into money, but that's probably a lot of work.
Yeah.
Some people could just be lucky, right? They bought the right stock, they bought the right cryptocurrency, they won the lottery. Those are a lot of times hard to sustain. So the question is, what activities are most consistent with who you are to deliver the most value to the world? Because it doesn't take money to make money. It takes value creation to make money. And when we get confused about that and think money is something we got to get or take or compete for or hold on to, or, you know, or hold on before someone else gets it, or take it because someone else will. And it's a zero-sum game where it's win-lose scenarios. That's exhausting, that tug of war. And a lot of times it's bred by jealousy and scarcity. And so, look, I've been there. I've been like, I almost bought Bitcoin at 100, didn't. And then started regretting it, and it infiltrated my dreams. It infiltrated my life. It was hard to just relax and be at peace. And it took work, right? And be like, well, look, that would have been luck. I didn't really know enough about it. It was too hard to transact at the time, so I just gave up on it too quickly. But, you know, like, instead the view would be like, well, what is my life going to be about? Like, I want to plant a seed of hope, connection, and expression in the hearts of 1 billion people, right? So if it's aligned with that vision, I'm in. If it's not aligned, I'm out.
Yeah.
And so I'm focusing on value creation as the main culprit to finance, not luck, not, you know, marrying into it or inheriting it or anything like that. It's like, what can I do in the world and have money be the byproduct of that?
Yeah.
So vision is how you win, right? Value is how you deliver that vision. And then, you know, what you're going to have is dollars as a byproduct of that. So it doesn't take money to make money. It takes relationships and ideas. It takes value in exchange. It takes serving others and solving problems. It takes value creation at the core of it.
What would you say to someone, I agree with what you're saying. What would you say to someone who is, you know, a teacher or a stay-at-home mom, or someone who is working in the humanities, let's just say? Like, I feel like those people are delivering massive amounts of value,
Right.
but money's not following them.
The container is the constraint. The container is the constraint.
Yeah.
You know, my
That's a
my
good
little
clarification.
sister, great teacher, created a blog. What the teacher really wants. Started doing really well with the blog, helping teachers. So she was educating teachers and an educator herself. What she's getting paid by the government was not great. What she started doing as an enterprise, as an entrepreneur with that blog, started to increase her income. So the container win really matters. And sometimes the procedures and the structure are going to limit how much you can get paid, because it limits the number of people you can reach. Or it might even limit how deeply you can impact those people. You were a teacher,
Yes.
you know, let's say you have 30 students, you know, and we look at the tax base of 30 students and how much would come in that would go to the actual physical structure, how much would go to the actual administration, how much goes to books and supplies, and then how much is left over for a teacher. And we say, well, it's unfair that they're not paid more, but the question is, where would that money come from? Right? So the container might be, to be an educator, you might have to create a new construct. You might have to do something different, because I consider myself an educator, much higher paid than the teachers that are, you know, working for the government in my family. And we've had, my sister was teacher of the year, my mother-in-law was teacher of the year, my wife's aunt was teacher of the year, like some phenomenal teachers. But the reality is, it's how much value can they provide in that construct.
Yeah. So asking the question, how do I expand my container so I
Right.
can increase my value? Not my value, but my
Right. And the
contribution.
vision is the container.
Yes.
It tells our brains what's important,
That's a
what
good
to pay attention to. And really the impact equation is, how do I A, reach more people, or B, more deeply impact the people I reach? And if you can just solve those things, there's new value. Now, if you're going to be a domestic engineer, right, and stay at home, you'll get value from the hugs, the kisses, you know, and not always pleasant in raising kids, but
Right.
you'll get the value in the emotion, not in the dollar,
Yeah.
because there's different currency.
Healthy
There's
attachments
currency
with
of-
your kids
right.
is a healthy, you know.
Right. So you're making a very long-term investment. Now, maybe they become your retirement plan. Maybe not. I don't know. But that's a choice. Like, you might have a family member that is so amazing to your family, never get wealthy financially, but it's because they dedicated the life to the family, not to people they didn't know.
Yeah.
When you don't know people, they exchange money with you. When you know them, they exchange conversations, pleasantries, time, you know, those connection. So that's the reality of the world. So just because you add a lot of value doesn't automatically mean you're going to be really rich. It's how do you add that value, and who do you add that value to? And what does the public's perception of that value look like? Because value is perspective. And it's the perspective of the person that's paying for it. And so that container is what we're back in.
Yeah.
What's the container? You know, and we're constantly looking at what's our container And how are we going to reach people, and how do we impact them, and what does that look like? And, we're inventing brand new ways. And that's just part of the process. And that's not always an easy process, but it can be very rewarding, right?
Sure.
And it may not be short-term, immediate. I think a lot of times we have expediency where we cut corners to get to activity that directly compensates versus vision, which indirectly creates the container that compensates the bigger dollars. And because people get into places where they're in student loan debt, or they get a car loan, or they get credit cards, or they get married, and all of a sudden they've got a mortgage. And now they're kind of forced into a situation where I've got to pay my bills. I don't have time to think anymore. I just have to do. And life feels super busy. And when we're doing things that we hate and draining our energy, then we don't have time for the things we love, which was the reason we started doing it in the first place. And hence you start seeing breakage in families with divorce, and bitterness that people have because the stock market's not performing, or because they're working really hard, but they don't feel rewarded for it. But they're working in a way that's not consistent with the best value they can provide the world. And I'm not saying this is easy.
No,
it's not easy to find what that's going to be. It may exist. It may not. When it doesn't exist, that could be a scary place, right? Be like, I'm going to invent something. Okay.
Right.
A new format. That could take time. But the question is, what work is worthy of your life? And if you decide to be a teacher for the government, you made an exchange that said, this is what you get paid.
Yeah.
And if you want to get paid more than that, you've got to create a new container. You've got to complement that container. There's maybe additional work that you have to do. I don't know what that is, but you really have to question, is that where you want to be? Because if you stay in it and complain, you're destroying the enjoyment of the work, and you're demeaning the system, and you're part of the problem because you're actually allowing the system to underpay you if that's how you feel.
Yes.
And then unfortunately, our kids start to see that. Our kids start being trained by people that go, I'm underpaid. And they're like, oh, why?
Yeah.
Because these rich people aren't paying more. Oh, screw those rich people. And you see where those beliefs come, because when my wife was a teacher and we would be at the grocery store and she'd see a student, she was like a hero. It was like, oh my God.
Oh,
That's
it's one of the best
Mrs.
feelings.
Gunderson.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe it. And I was like, I've never been approached with that kind of excitement as our students and enthusiasm.
Yes.
And so think of the influence that teacher is going to have. And so we have to look at the systems, and we have to look at what our choices with time, and we have to look at the additional currencies. Is it simply the value we provide and the smiles that we provide? Is it the connection we have with the person? I mean, there's a number of things that we can kind of look at there, but if you don't like the system, you got to create a new one.
Yes.
And maybe you got to partner with someone to create it.
Yeah, that's really good insight. I had a student reach out several months back and just said, Ms. Stolpa, do you remember when you taught us about healthy living and and you taught us all these things? And I just wanted you to know I really appreciated that. And I was like, that just like warmed my heart for months. Right. It was just so beautiful.
Part of your compensation.
Yes, right? Absolutely.
It's part of the compensation.
Absolutely.
It may not be monetary compensation all the time, but there is value, right?
Absolutely. Always value.
All
okay.
right.
So top one, get acquainted with the roots of your relationship with your money. And then you would add, consider your vision, your container, and how you add value to the world there.
Right. And I think Killing Sacred Cows is a great book for this. So I'm just going to gift it, wealthfactory.com/megakit, MEGAKIT. There's other resources. But Killing Sacred Cows addresses 9 money myths that have really permeated people's mindset and limited their prosperity. So by identifying them, you can actually choose a different path.
Yes.
And you can invent your future more powerfully versus just taking what's the limited belief system that's been handed down for generations that maybe served us during the Great Depression, but maybe doesn't still pertain 100 years later.
Yeah, I'm not saying this because I work for you, because I read the book before I worked for you, but it's a fantastic book. I remember like breezing through that book, not breezing, like I just flew through that book because it helps you understand these complex myths in a digestible way. And you're just like, what have I been believing my whole life? What have I been taught? So I would encourage everybody to get that.
Awesome. All right. Turn your thoughts into profits and build the life you love. Want to master your money? Want to figure out the things that you could do to improve your finances? Click here and check out more videos like this on Money Matters.